Hello, this is John Hicks, Executive Director of the National Association of State Budget Officers, or NASBO. I am pleased to present an overview of NASBO's Spring 2018 Fiscal Survey of States. The Spring Fiscal Survey provides information about the 50 states' general fund, the fund where most state governments' tax revenues are collected and spent. The survey includes financial information for the last actual fiscal year, 2017, the current fiscal year, 2018, and budget proposals by the state's governors for fiscal 2019. I will start with a summary of the spring survey's results. State fiscal conditions show signs of improvement compared to this time last year, driven by moderately higher revenue growth. Most states are seeing revenue collections come in at or above budgeted estimates. Governor's budgets propose general fund spending growth of 3.2% for fiscal 2019, compared to just 1% in last year's budget proposals. Revenue growth picked up in fiscal 2018 after 2 years of weakness and is estimated to grow 4.9%, though the growth varies by state, as the median growth rate is just 2.7%. Only 9 states had to make mid-year budget cuts in fiscal 2018, compared to almost half the states last year. Governor's proposed tax and revenue changes would result in a net revenue increase of $2.8 billion in 2019. Most states continue to bolster their rainy day funds in preparation for the next downturn, and a slowdown in Medicaid spending is expected in fiscal 2019. General fund spending and recommended budgets for fiscal 2019. Recommended state spending for fiscal 2019 reflects an average increase of 3.2%, in line with the average growth rate in the last 8 years following the Great Recession. The median growth rate is a bit lower at 2.7%. Fiscal conditions appear slightly improved than they were this time last year when governors proposed budgets to increase spending by just 1%, with actual spending declines proposed in 15 states. Fiscal conditions vary by state. This map shows the different amounts of spending changes proposed for fiscal 2019. 7 states in blue propose spending declines in fiscal 2019. 8 states have less than 2% growth proposed. 21 states have spending growth between 2 and 4%. And finally, 14 states in purple reflect spending greater than 4%. This next chart shows the program areas where governors are proposing to increase spending. The red bars reflect governors' proposals for fiscal 2019, and the blue bars are the governor's proposals for last fiscal year. Overall, the 3.2% spending increase reflects about $26.5 billion for all 50 states. By comparison, last year's budget proposals only included $8.7 billion in spending increases, a reflection of the more modest revenue situation then. Out of the increased spending in 2019, elementary and secondary education, or K-12, would receive $7.2 billion of the $26.5 billion in additional spending. Spending for elementary and secondary education accounts for the largest share of states' general funds, about 35%. It is common for education to be a top budget priority for governors and state legislatures. 37 state budget proposals include additional funding for education for fiscal 2019. Medicaid would receive $5.3 billion additional, with 33 states proposing increases and 10 states proposing decreases. The NASBO Spring Survey also includes a separate section on Medicaid spending. The category of All Other contains the bulk of state government programs and agencies, though only about 26% of general fund spending. This category is the largest recipient of new general fund spending, $10.1 billion. This category ranges from increased pension costs to increases in employee compensation to aid to local governments. This $10.1 billion strongly contrasts with spring 2017, when the all other category was a net decrease in spending. Higher education, corrections, public assistance, and transportation spending from states' general funds have only minor increases, though slightly higher than last year. Another indication of an improved fiscal environment for states is that only 9 states reported mid-year budget cuts in the current fiscal year, fiscal 2018. That is much lower than the past 2 years when 22 and 19 states had to cut their budgets after it passed, primarily due to revenue shortfalls. This chart captures almost 30 years of state budget information, reflecting on the number of states with mid-year budget cuts, the bars, and the amounts of those cuts, the green line. The years with the highest number of states having to cut their budgets is strongly associated with recessionary periods. Proposed general fund spending for fiscal 2019 is $862 billion for all 50 states combined. This is the dollar value associated with the 3.2% average increase. In fiscal 2018, states estimate spending $835 billion. In that year, total state spending caught up to the pre-recession spending levels from fiscal 2008 when increased for inflation, the green bar, 10 years later. While this has happened for the sum of all 50 states, 27 states have still not reached the equivalent of their fiscal 2008 spending level when adjusted for inflation. Next, we will look at general fund revenues and recommended tax changes for fiscal 2019. This slide shows survey data for general fund revenue collections compared to original budget projections. In 2018, 39 states reported revenue collections meeting, the blue section, or exceeding, the green section, original budget forecasts. 11 states, in red, reported lower revenue forecasts than originally budgeted. This compares favorably to the situation in the last 2 years, where over half the states reported lower than originally estimated revenues. For every identified revenue source of state general funds, a majority of states are reporting that revenues are expected to meet or exceed their original budget estimates: personal income tax, sales tax, corporate income tax, gaming, and all other. These data mostly reflect revenue estimates made this past December or January. Indications are that updated revenue forecasts made after governors submitted their proposed budgets are mostly higher. As shown earlier, with general fund spending, total general fund revenues in fiscal 2018 have finally recovered to the pre-recession peak year of 2008, when adjusted for inflation, a slow but positive trend of annual growth. Fiscal 2016 and 2017 revenues grew just 1.8% and 2.3% respectively. Fiscal 2018 revenues are estimated to grow an average of 4.9%, though the median growth rate is lower at 2.7%. Fiscal 2019 revenues were forecasted to grow by 2.1%. To explain the revenue growth in 2018, 13 states reported revenue growth greater than 6%, including several western states experiencing better than average economic performance. Also, a few energy states have bounced back from weak revenues in fiscal 2017. Also, several of the larger states like Florida, New York, and Pennsylvania have higher than average growth rates, impacting the 50-state total of 4.9% growth. This chart shows revenue growth rates for the current year, fiscal 2018, by tax type and what is forecasted in governor's budgets for fiscal 2019. These figures reflect the median growth rates, or the average state. The orange bar shows total general fund revenues, plus 2.7% in fiscal 2018 and plus 2.8% in fiscal 2019. The red personal income tax bar shows the highest growth rate in both years. Personal income tax represents about 45% of the 50-state general fund revenues. The blue sales tax bar shows growth rates a full percentage point higher than the previous 2 years, fiscal 2016 and 2017. Also, after 2 straight years of declining corporate income taxes, both years reflect actual increases in revenues, the green bar. This next chart is a summary of the types of tax and revenue increases and decreases included in Governor's fiscal 2019 budget proposals. Governors in 14 states recommended net increases in taxes and other revenues in fiscal 2019, and 12 recommended net decreases. They sum up to an additional $2.8 billion, of which $1.7 billion is for the general fund, or about 0.2% of all general fund revenues. Some proposed changes to personal income taxes were a reaction to recent federal tax law changes passed by Congress in December 2017. State budget calendars prevented many governors from having the opportunity to incorporate reactions to the federal tax changes into their initially submitted budgets. The largest dollar impact is in the corporate income tax. 2 states' proposals comprise most of this figure and reflect a response to federal tax law changes. The other tax category increases were driven largely by energy-related tax proposals and decreases by property tax actions. State savings accounts, typically referred to as rainy day funds. 28 governors are planning increases in rainy day funds in fiscal 2019, with only 3 states expecting declines. Most states have continued to strengthen their reserves in recent years, heavily influenced by governors' proposals. The median rainy day fund balance as a percentage of spending is an estimated 6.2% in fiscal 2019. That compares to 1.9% in fiscal 2011, the year following the 2 worst fiscal years of the Great Recession. This chart is a 20-year look at the rainy day fund balances. States are building back their reserves and on average exceeding the level of reserves prior to the last 2 recessions. Now let's move to Medicaid spending. Medicaid spending from all fund sources, the far right-hand bar, is estimated to increase by 5.2% in the current fiscal year, 2018, and by only 1.9% in fiscal 2019. Total state funds, which are the green bars, are estimated to grow 4.5% this year and only 1.5% in fiscal 2019. This is NASBO's 2nd year for collecting spending information for the Medicaid expansion program undertaken by 31 states in the District of Columbia. Fiscal 2018 is the 2nd year the states picked up a share of the cost of the expansion program. Medicaid expansion spending from state funds is estimated to increase by $3.6 billion in fiscal 2018 to a total state funds of $10.3 billion, and with a slight decrease in those amounts for fiscal 2019. I hope this overview was helpful. For more information, read a summary of the NASBO Spring 2018 Fiscal Survey of States, or download the full report at www.nasbo.org.